Hi, welcome to my channel. My name is Kim and I have been teaching Yin Yoga for a bit now, and I'm excited for you to join me in this moment on your mat. Go ahead and grab yourself a mat, or at least a easy place for you to be able to lie down and stand up a little bit for about an hour to an hour and 15 minutes, moving through several breathing and physical movement exercises. As you find yourself a space to be, gather any yoga props that you use, such as a bolster or blocks or an eye pillow. Or if yoga props are not something you currently have around you, gather a few pillows off of your bed or your couch and add a blanket underneath where your knees will be, as we will have a few hands on our knees and knees on the ground poses. Yin Yoga is a practice of moving intentionally through different movements without necessarily expecting any level of flexibility, physical fitness, or any of the things that you have as preconceived notions about what yoga might be. Those don't apply here. Any version of the pose is the pose. And if you've taken a class with me before, you've often heard me say that phrase, as well as noticing that when we find ourselves in two-sided poses, one side might be very different than the other. That's because your body isn't as symmetrical as maybe you would think or hope or expect, or Instagram could lead you to believe. We each live our days and our lives moving through the motions of what we're expected to do. Some of those motions allow different parts of our body to be strained or stressed in different ways than others. Sometimes that varies day to day, hour to hour, or season to season. As you find yourself moving through postures tonight that include two sides, please remember not to judge yourself, not to have expectations that are unreasonable for yourself, and also not to push yourself to a sense of pain. Throughout Yin Yoga, I instruct classes to kind of ride the wave of sensation. And what I mean by that is, if you were to rate sensation on a scale of 0, meaning exactly maybe how you feel right now, where nothing's exacerbated, nothing's stretched too much, you're just kind of here, to a scale of pain, if we wanted to give pain the number 10. We never want to get to pain. We never want to experience pain, and we never want to cause ourselves pain just for this purpose of growing. We might want to cause ourselves to move into sensation, to notice discomfort, and to notice what it can be like to sit with discomfort and ask it what it has to teach us. So find yourself maybe at about a 6, where 6 is sensation. Maybe you're looking to move a little bit deeper, so you move into a 7, but never really move yourself past there, because then you're bordering on the edge of pain, strain, and pushing yourself for the sake of pushing yourself, rather than sitting at that growth edge. So go ahead and find yourself in a comfortable seat or lying down if you haven't already.
So we will start. So pick a position you want to be in for about 5 minutes. If it's not the one that you're already in, get yourself comfortable. And we're just going to kind of literally arrive here. Like we just got here. And so I want to kind of just have us spend about a minute or so just breathing, seeing how we feel, noticing how we feel, and maybe internally ask yourself how you feel physically, emotionally, any other aspect of your life that you like to check in with yourself, maybe spiritually, and just notice that. And in about a minute, I'll guide us through a grounding exercise that can be incredibly helpful when we feel like we've been a little bit disconnected or dissociated throughout our day. So just spend about a minute with yourself and just arrive. And if you have found an answer to that question quickly, just go ahead and begin to notice your breath. Don't ask it to change. Just begin to pay attention to it, how it feels, how deep it is, and what parts of your body create sensation as you inhale or exhale. And as we walk through the opening kind of meditation exercise, it might be something that's familiar to you, but I use this exercise a lot with young people I work with and adults who might be experiencing anxiety, panic, or just a sense of not feeling in the moment to help us kind of come back into the moment. And so wherever you are with your eyes open or closed, decide if you would like to pretend as if you were in your favorite calm place, or if you'd like to stay in this space for this exercise. And once you've kind of decided if you're imagining yourself in maybe a favorite place, I sometimes like to picture myself sitting behind a waterfall in the gorge, just watching the water in front of me, creating my own little cave. In your mind, begin to notice 5 different things that you can see around you, wherever you are. Maybe that's literally here in this space. Maybe look around and notice the lights or the things on the walls. Or if you find yourself somewhere in your mind, just notice 5 different things about where you are. And keep breathing while you do this. And once you've noticed the visual scene around you, come to your body where you are and notice 4 things that you can feel. Maybe that's the fabric of your clothes that you're wearing. Maybe you notice a part of your body touching the ground. Maybe you notice the way that a piece of your hair is lying across your face or the back of your neck. Just notice 4 things that you can physically feel touching you right here. Or in your mind, if you are picturing an experience, I sometimes like to imagine what it feels like to feel the mist of the waterfall brushing across my face, or the cold rocks or the moss on them. And then begin to notice 3 different things that you can hear, whether that be here in this space or in the space that you're finding yourself relaxing into. Maybe you notice the music. Maybe you notice the sound of your heartbeat. But just notice 3 things that you can hear. And then we have masks on over our noses, but see if you can smell 2 different things. Maybe you can't, and that's okay. But maybe you can. Maybe they're pleasant, maybe they're unpleasant, but just notice if you can smell 2 different things. And if you can't, just notice what it feels like to inhale and exhale, sensation in your nose. And then carrying on to one more scent or one more sensation. Notice one thing that you can taste. Maybe you ate a snack or a meal just before coming here. Maybe you had a cup of tea, and maybe that's lingering a tiny bit for you. But just notice something you can taste. And if you can't taste anything, just take a moment and just swallow. Notice what it feels like to feel sensation in your throat. Notice if that changes your breath right after. And then spend about another minute just sitting here in the space, having run through 5 things we saw, 4 things we felt, 3 things we heard, 2 things we could smell, or what our breath feels like as we inhale through our nostrils, and 1 thing we can taste. Just breathing and being aware of the ways in which our body interacts with the space around us. And if you took yourself to a place outside of here, begin to come back here and begin to notice what the ground underneath you feels like physically. Connecting with each part of your body that's touching the ground, noticing what your feet feel like, what your sit bones feel like, what your hands feel like resting on your body or the ground. And as you feel comfortable, begin to flutter open your eyes and notice two things around you. Coming back to arriving back here in this practice, in this class, as we get ready to move through about a dozen or so poses. And at any point when you are in a posture that we'll be in for about 3 minutes, if you find yourself getting distracted by something that happened before this or happens after this, just feel free to come back to your sensations, come back to your senses, and just pay attention to those, to come back to your body and remind yourself that you have taken this time to take a break. And if you aren't already seated, go ahead and, in your own way, in your own time, find yourself up in an upright seat with your legs crossed. And we'll move into our first posture together. So it's as if we almost read my mind, because our first pose is going to be butterfly legs. So go ahead and shift the soles of your feet together. If you like to sit up on something for this, go ahead and do that. And place your hands on your ankles at first. We're just going to spend a couple breaths stretching out and noticing our neck, which will cause us to just begin to notice maybe any tension that we feel there. And so if while you're doing this, you enjoyed the foot massage that we did last week, feel free to move your hands from your ankles to your feet and just massage the bottoms of your feet. But take an inhale breath and sit up tall. And then on an exhale, drop your right ear over towards your right shoulder. Taking an inhale breath and noticing what the left side of your neck feels like. And then on an exhale breath, look down at your right shoulder and notice what that feels like. Maybe it feels lovely, maybe it does not. But take 2 breaths here, looking down at your shoulder. And then on a second exhale, just look back forward, eyes open or closed. And once you're looking forward again, on your next inhale breath, look up towards the ceiling and notice what that feels like. If that changes your breath at all. Take 2 breaths here. And after the second exhale, looking back straight ahead, ear just drops to the right shoulder. And then take an inhale and bring your head back up to neutral. Pause for a breath cycle and notice anything that feels different. And then on your exhale, drop your left ear to your left shoulder, trying not to let the right shoulder come with it. Take a breath here, and on the exhale, look down at your left shoulder, noticing what your right shoulder is doing, what the right side of your neck is doing. Take another breath. Your ear drops towards the left, looking down at the left shoulder. And then on an exhale, look up towards the ceiling, noticing what this feels like. On an exhale, looking back to neutral forward. And then inhale, bring your head back up to neutral altogether. Pausing for just a moment. And then on your next exhale, dropping your chin down towards your chest. Trying not to let your back round too much, just moving the head and the neck. And notice what it feels like to look downward. Maybe you close your eyes if you've had them open. And just breathe for 5 breaths. Their chin drops towards our chest, stretching out the back of our neck intentionally. Maybe we find ourselves partially in this position throughout our day. Maybe if your eyes are open, you begin to move your hands to your feet if they were on your ankles. And just massage the bottom of your feet, using your thumbs to just find any areas of tension. And just notice your feet. Throughout our days, we often walk around without much attention to what allows us to do that. And then just for a few moments, just take a moment and pay attention to how your feet feel. Maybe you shift to massaging the sides of them. Maybe you use your other fingers to massage the tops of your feet. But just explore this sensation. And then on an inhale breath, bring your head back up to neutral. We're just going to roll our shoulders up towards our ears and back 3 times, noticing how that feels to open our chest in a different way than maybe we have throughout our day. And then once you've done this 3 times, feel free to continue if you'd like to, but make sure that you do 3 times rolling your shoulders back and forwards as well when you're ready. Just take about a minute or so to roll our shoulders, making sure we do as much as we can possibly to equal out rolling forward and backwards. So just becoming aware of what you actually feel like. Maybe you want to just like do one at a time or do some more neck stretches. Just come fully into how your upper body feels. Maybe you want to roll one at a time, noticing what it feels like to kind of do some alternative movement. And then once you feel like you've gotten what you wanted from that, we're going to move into deer pose, which is one of the many 2-sided poses we'll do tonight that'll stretch out. And it's a pose that looks simpler than it feels, at least to me after I've been sitting all day. And so from butterfly legs, we will leave our left leg where it is, but lift up our right leg and kind of swing it behind us so that our right shin is parallel to the side of our mat. Left shin is pretty much where it was, but you can shift it a little bit across your body. And then see how this feels for your hips. See if you feel like you're tilting to one side or another. And try and bring yourself into as neutral of a position as you can. You might want to place one hand on either side of that left foot. And take an inhale and sit up really, really tall if you can. Notice what this feels like. And then on an exhale breath, you can either stay sitting up or walk your hands forward and see what that feels like to add a different sensation to this stretch. We'll be here for a couple minutes. And so maybe you want to use a prop to prop up your forehead or your chest. Maybe you want to have sphinx-like arms and just drop your head down. But just see what this feels like along the inner right thigh, the left glute, the left thigh, your IT bands. Just become aware of any patterns of holding, any tension. And see if you can use an inhale breath to kind of breathe in as if you could make space. And then an exhale breath to move into that space. And just settle into this posture on this side. Maybe if your forehead is resting on something, you kind of roll it side to side to massage out the space between your eyebrows. It's not resting on anything. Maybe you twist your head side to side. So let any extra tension in your neck release and let your head just hang. Take 2 more breaths wherever you are. And on your second exhale, plant your hands and then slowly guide yourself back up. Taking an inhale at the top. And then on the exhale, using whatever you need to guide your right leg back around and come back to butterfly for just a minute. Maybe you grab your ankles and kind of flutter your wings. Notice how differently your hips might feel. And just bounce that out. Sometimes just adding these little movements can help us come back when we find ourselves distracted. And then leaving your right leg essentially as it is. This time we'll pick up our left leg and swing it around so that our shin is parallel to our mat. Maybe you move your right leg across a little bit. Again, planting your hands on the ground, maybe one outside of your leg, one next to your left foot, adjusting so that you're not necessarily tipping to one side or the other. Take an inhale. If you notice that you're tipping, that's okay. Our hips are tight in different ways on different times of the day. And then on an exhale, walk your hands forward. Slowly coming down. Not expecting yourself to come exactly into the same posture on this side as you did the other. Maybe you can, maybe you can't. Neither is a problem. But just being with where your body is tonight and allowing your inhale breath to fill up your body with a sense of calm, sense of a new breath, and an exhale to allow you to kind of move into any space that you'd like to make. Slowly letting the exhales also release anything that feels like it's ready to release so that you can move and adjust and let tension just kind of melt away. And today is full moon, which can be a lot of different things for different people. But I like to work through thinking of things that on new moons I'm hoping to do more of or change or adjust. And then on full moons, thinking of things that are maybe in the way of that I need to let go of, or something that I'm holding on to that's holding me back. And so sometimes through our breath, we can imagine that we are working on letting something go. Sometimes that's physical, sometimes it's emotional, sometimes it's an expectation we have of ourselves or that's been placed on us that isn't allowing us to feel connected to ourselves, connected to who we want to be and where we want to go. So as you exhale tonight, imagine thinking of what are things that you would like to release so that you can move farther into where you want to be through the fall, through the winter, and into the rest of this year. I don't think any of us are kind of exactly where we might have expected to be in October of 2021 when we thought about the start of the year, but we are where we are. And if there's things in our way that we can move out of the way, full moons can be a great time to at least consider thinking about releasing those. And after practice tonight, I brought some paper and some pens if you would like to physically write those down and let them go and leave them here so that as you move onward, you can move on having released those. But just think on that tonight if you're looking for an anchor point as you inhale and exhale. Where can you make space? And what can you let go of to move into that? Take one more inhale here. And on the exhale, plant your hands on the ground or the mat. And then on the next inhale, push yourself up. Come back up to neutral. Grab that left leg and swing it around. And come back to fluttering your butterfly wings of your knees. Noticing if things feel more similar. Noticing what it feels like to sit. And the next posture we're going to move into is a wide-legged forward fold. And there's a couple options. You can either take 6 minutes and just a general wide-legged forward fold with both legs out, or you can do one leg at a time, a couple minutes on each side. And so I'm going to do one at a time. And if you'd like to add a bolster or blocks in front of you to kind of rest your chest or your head onto, go ahead and grab those and place them out in front of you. Maybe you want to build yourself a ramp. Just set yourself something up that you can rest your forehead on if you'd like. And then decide if you'd like to do one leg at a time or both legs. And pick, if you're doing one leg at a time, pick which leg is in. Stretch the other leg out at about a 45-degree angle. Maybe bring those props in closer to you. Take an inhale breath. And place your hands on your knees, whether both of them are out or both of them are together. And just take an inhale and kind of do somewhat of a cat-cowish like shape with your upper back. And inhale and open up your chest and look up towards the ceiling. And then exhale, curl in, tucking your chin to your chest. Notice what that feels like. Take an inhale and come back to neutral. And then on your exhale, go ahead and place your hands either on the prop, on each side of it, and just walk yourself forward. Maybe adjusting anything if you are moving in a different way than you expected to move. And just drop your forehead down. Let it find somewhere to rest. And just be here. This week during the day, I spent most of my days talking with young people about mental health and depression and suicide prevention and things of that nature. And one of the sentiments that I offered the young people I work with is a quote from none other than Brene Brown that I found during the pandemic that she said, what we don't need in the midst of struggle is shame for being human. And I don't remember the context of it, but the offering came from the idea that we've shifted back into patterns that might feel like back to normal for some people, or that's a sentiment that some people are evoking. But we're humans who did something very, very different for over a year. And whether or not that difference included things that we enjoyed or things we didn't enjoy, shifting is a shift, and that's hard for us, all of us, for our nervous systems. Maybe we miss things. Maybe we thought things would go back to a way that they're not going back to. And sometimes we can shame ourselves for experiencing change that's hard and experiencing a range of emotions from sadness and anger, disappointment, or emotions that we don't have words for, but they don't feel great. And so if you find yourself at all having expectations that you feel like you're not meeting, shaming yourself for having emotions that you feel like you, quote, maybe shouldn't have, just allow yourself to feel those. It's human to not know how to fully, perfectly adjust to transition in an instant. And it's human to need time and space to process that. So use this time and space to process that, to let yourself just be, and let the props hold you, and release anything through your exhales, and just let it stay here. You're allowed to feel whatever you're feeling. And you're allowed to process it in the way that's healthy for you. And model that for those around you. Because we have enough messages from us, from the world, telling us what we do and don't need to do, and should and shouldn't feel. But we often forget to take time and ask ourselves what we actually feel. So let yourself feel, let yourself breathe, and just let yourself be. If you're doing this pose with one leg at a time, over the course of your next 2 breaths, place your hands down, press yourself up, and switch which leg is tucked in and which leg is out. And then guide yourself back down. And as you have your legs stretched out, maybe you want to explore what it feels like to point and flex your toes. If you're looking to create different sensation to help you sit with this, or just to feel different sensation. Maybe you twist your ankles side to side, if that's available. We'll spend about another minute or so here. In your next breath, go ahead and find your hands, planting them on the side of your prop. And using your next couple breaths to press into the ground, walk your hands back towards you, and walk yourself back up. We're going to move on to our hands and knees into tabletop position, but take any transition that makes sense to you. If you'd like to come back to butterfly, flutter your wings, do that. But just adjust yourself so that you can find yourself on all fours. And once you find yourself in tabletop position, just spend a couple breaths noticing what it feels like to shift into this downward facing position with our hands and our knees planted. Maybe you want to wiggle side to side and look over one hip, one shoulder towards one hip. See what this feels like on your neck and your shoulders. Just becoming aware of what this feels like. We move from sitting to tabletop. And then when you're ready, we'll flow through 5 cat-cows and find our way to downward facing dog afterwards. So taking an inhale and dropping your belly, looking up towards the ceiling. And then exhale, pressing into the mat. Looking down towards our belly, raising our upper back towards the ceiling. Flowing through that 4 more times, and then tucking your toes and sending your hips up towards the ceiling and meeting in downward dog. And your last cat cow, maybe make it a little bit more of a stretch, seeing if you can tilt your hips, arch your spine, and flex your spine just a little bit more. Walking your hands, one handprint forward, tucking your toes, and lifting your hips up towards the sky. And once you find your way to downward dog, use what you need to settle into this as well. Maybe bending one knee at a time, allowing your shin or your calves to stretch out, allowing yourself just to feel what it's like to be in this posture, noticing anything about your shoulders, noticing what it's like to be in this inversion, noticing what it's like to shake your head side to side. Maybe there's a little bit of neck tension still hanging out. Let it literally hang out of the top of your head. On an inhale breath, shift forward into plank just momentarily. Notice what this feels like. Exhale back to downward dog. We'll flow through that twice more. Inhaling to plank. Exhaling to downward dog. Inhaling once more to plank. And exhaling to downward dog. And where we're going from here is we're going to flow into our lizard lunge and pigeon on each side from downward dog. And so we've done this before. So if you have a specific way that you know works best for you to have props, hopefully they might be nearby and you can get to them when you need them. We'll start with our left leg planted. We'll inhale our right leg up to 3-legged dog. If you'd like to bend your knee and open into scorpion to open up that hip, you're welcome to. And then exhale, bring that right leg to where the foot is outside of the right hand. Maybe it's close to the right hand and you make some adjustments. You find yourself here in this lunge, drop your left knee down. Maybe you need to shift that back a little bit. And both of your hands are inside the right foot if you're taking lizard lunge. If you'd like to spend the whole time in pigeon, you are welcome to do that. And then here in lizard lunge, we'll just spend a couple minutes here before we transition to pigeon with our right leg forward. Maybe you like to add blocks. Bring your hands down onto those, forearms onto that, or a bolster. But just see if you can sit with the sensation of these hip stretches, openings, compressions, and all the sensations that lunges can offer. Another option is to peel open that foot so that you have come onto the outside edge. Maybe that adjusts your hips a little bit. But wherever you are, just settle into that for 2 more minutes. If you like to add a little bit of movement, maybe you add in that cat-cow breathing. You inhale and look up to the ceiling, and exhale and look down, arching your spine a little bit, making it as exaggerated as you would like to if you'd like to add in more movement, or just sitting with the stillness. of movement or stillness, whatever you need. And then when you're ready, shift your right hand to the outside of your right foot and slowly trace that right foot across your mat so that it comes towards your left hand. You'll drop your right knee down. You tuck your back toes and shift your left leg a little bit forward. And you find yourself in pigeon with your right knee forward. Stay upright for a breath, looking up towards the ceiling. And then when you're ready, use an exhale to come forward over that right leg and down onto forearms, arms will drop. Maybe you find something to rest your forehead on. And just settle into this sensational but potentially restful posture. Noticing what's releasing. Noticing if anything emotional is coming up for you. And just using your breath to sit with that. About another minute in pigeon on your side. Where can you soften with your exhales? And where can you breathe in a deeper sense of peace, deeper sense of groundedness, or a deeper sense of strength? Sit with whatever you're needing to sit with. Placing your hands on the mat, on the ground, and pressing your palms solidly into whatever is underneath you, walking yourself back up. Placing your hands towards the edges of your mat and tucking your back left toe so that you can find your way back to downward dog in the way that makes sense to you, as slowly as you need to. Maybe you come back into three-legged dog and scorpion. And then finding your way to both of your feet being grounded back on the mat. And once you're here in downward dog or the transition pose of your choice, just take a breath to notice, how do you feel? What do you need? And how can you offer yourself that? So we're going to lift our left leg this time, inhaling it up to the sky, opening that hip into scorpion if you would like, and then swinging it through, bringing it to the outside of our left hand, coming into lizard lunge on this side. Both hands on the inside of your feet. Drop your right knee, untuck your toe, and coming down as you would like to, or flowing through that inhaling cat-cow like shape to let your hip adjust. Inhaling, looking up to the ceiling, and exhale, curling in just a little bit. Sometimes our hips need just a little bit of kind of bouncing to adjust into these lunges, especially depending on the types of movements and things that we do throughout our day. So finding your way to settle. Always remembering not to expect each side to be the same and not to have a sense of judgment about that. We've got about 1 more minute in this lizard lunge before we move into pigeon. You're of course always willing or welcome to move whenever makes sense to you. But if you're focusing on staying, just know that we're almost there. Calming back to the breath and making sure that if you've lost track of a deep breath, see how deep this next inhale can be. See if you need an open mouth exhale to just release anything. And then when you're ready, moving your left hand to the outside of your left foot, slowly inching it across your mat so that it can come down. That knee can come down towards that left wrist. Adjusting your back right leg at all if you need to. And then taking a breath, looking up, open up your throat, adjust. And then exhale, sinking forward, down onto forearms, finding a place for your forehead to rest if you'd like. And settling into pigeon on this side. got just another minute on this side in this pose. If you need to make any adjustments to sit for just another minute here, make those and let yourself settle. If you ever find this posture hard to stay in, maybe you come up to forearms kind of like in Sphinx position, and you just allow yourself to press into the ground with your elbows and just kind of rock side to side. Your hips are super tight. Sometimes I find that those rocking motions can help them settle, or at least can help adjust some of that tension so that it can melt away. Maybe you are perfectly content, melted as you are, but that's something I found that helps. Take another breath, beginning to prepare to move out of this posture, back to downward dog just briefly before we find ourselves into child's pose, or heading right to child's pose if that's what you know that you need. And then pressing your hands down into the ground, coming back up, planting your palms, tucking your back toe, and sending that hip up, or that knee up through, opening that hip if you'd like, scorpion, stretching back to three-legged dog, planting your foot back next to your right foot, adjusting in any way that you need to, and then dropping your knees down, keeping your knees together as they are in tabletop-like position, or bringing your big toes together and spreading your knees wide, and sending your hips back and settling into child's pose for a couple minutes before we move on together. Just planting your forehead down on the mat. If you'd like to make this more restorative, you're welcome to add a bolster. Just rest. Let your back stretch out. Let your hips settle into the same position at the same time. And I'm going to offer an option for us to thread the needle into this child's pose. But if you are comfortable staying just in child's pose as it is, stay where you are. And if you'd like to add that, shift yourself up just a little bit so that you can pick up your right arm and thread it underneath your left so that your right shoulder comes down onto the mat. Maybe the right side of your face comes down. And then send your hips back into that child's pose-like position with your right arm threaded through underneath your left. This can just add some extra opening in your shoulder, extra sensation, and offer something different. We'll just stay for a minute and a half on each side. So take this only if it's helpful to you. Pressing that left hand into the mat, just enough so that you can bring your right hand back forward and back to neutral for just a moment. And then pressing your right hand into the mat so that you can thread your left arm through and settling into threading the needle on the opposite side. Time the left arm is through, the left side of your face is down, and you're sending your hips back into a child's pose-like position. Take one more breath and then press with your right hand down into the mat, bringing both arms back forward. And take 4 breaths back to send a neutral child's pose position with your forehead down on the mat, arms stretched out in front of you. And when you feel complete, find your way back to tabletop position, lifting your hips up, bringing your knees back underneath your hips, bringing your hands back under your shoulders, palms down. And move in any way that feels intuitive to you. Maybe you don't want to move at all. Maybe you want to flow through some cat-cows or look over each shoulder towards each hip again. Just come back to this position for just a moment. We're going to shift into one of 2 optional positions, either fish pose or supported bridge pose for one of our second to final poses. And so think about which one you'd like to move into. And if you'd like to do fish pose, I like to do it with blocks. Supported bridge pose, you can do with blocks or bolster. And so find yourself coming back seated and set up your props in whichever way you would like. For fish pose, I would put your blocks behind you, one for your head, one for your chest. For supported bridge pose, I like to bring the bolster in front of me and then sit up on the bolster for supported bridge. For fish, just from where you are, just adjust yourself, whether you're sitting on your bolster for bridge or sitting for fish. So you can just lie yourself back so that either your chest or your hips are elevated, feeling supported by a prop. And you find yourself slowly coming down. If sitting on your bolster to get into bridge pose didn't work as you found yourself back, adjust as you need to so that that prop is right underneath your sacrum at the base of your spine. Adjust the blocks if you're in fish pose so that you feel supported and you feel big opening across your chest and your heart space. And decide if you'd like to keep your knees bent with your feet planted, knees up towards the ceiling, or if you'd like to stretch them out long to open up more across your hips. See what your lower back tells you, if you try one and it works or it doesn't. And just place either both hands on your belly and pay attention to your breath for the duration of this posture. Or maybe you want to place one hand on your heart and one on your belly. And just spend the next couple minutes coming back to your emotional state in this moment. We've been kind of doing some face down, inward looking positions, and sometimes moving into heart opening face up positions can evoke a sense of vulnerability, evoke a sense of heightened emotions. So just come back to yourself, reground, reconnect, deepen your breath if you've noticed it's moved to shallow, and just settle here, letting yourself be supported and held. If you notice that you're itching for movement, maybe tracing your head, the back of your head across your mat, noticing the sensation in your neck, noticing if this feels like mini scalp massage, or staying still, taking what you need. Taking your final 3 breaths in this upward facing, heart opening, supported posture. Seeing if your exhales can let you melt a little bit more into the support of the floor and the props underneath you. And then when you're ready, if you're in bridge pose, press your feet into the mat so that you can lift your hips and move the prop out from under you. And if you're in fish pose, adjust yourself so that you can lie flat on your back without any props underneath you as well. And take a breath with your spine neutral, just lying back. Bending your knees if you had them stretched out so that your feet are planted, knees up towards the ceiling. Letting your spine come back into neutral. And then we're going to move into our final 2-sided pose, which will be a supine twist with the option for eagle legs. And so when you're ready, we're going to lift up. If you're adding the eagle legs to this twist, we're just going to press our left foot into the mat, lift our right leg up and cross it over. And then press into the mat and shift your hips a little bit to the right so that you can drop your knees over to the left. Trying to keep both shoulders on the mat, facing your chest up towards the ceiling, with your knees knocked or dropped over to the left. And then you can place your hands anywhere that's comfortable for you, or you can stretch them out to the side, down along your side, or up over your head. But I like adding twists at the end just as a kind of symbolic gesture of kind of wringing out anything else that you need to let go of, you need to release, and I need to just relax in the final moments. So if that works for you, use your inhales and exhales to make space and twist into that space. And if you have your legs twisted for the final nearly minute of this posture, go ahead and untwist them and just leave them stacked, tipped over to the left. And see if you'd like to curl your knees in closer to your chest. If that changes the sensation of the twist in any way that helps you or feels in a way that's comfortable. And just take a couple more breaths here, knees over to the left. And when you're ready, brace your core, bring your knees back up to center, point it up towards the ceiling, shift your hips back to the center, and walk the soles of your feet out to the edges of your mat and just let your knees knock together for 2 breaths or windshield wiper. Just let yourself adjust before we move to the other side. And when you're ready, move your feet back closer together. Plant your right foot. If you're adding the eagle leg twist, lift up your left leg and cross it over. Press your foot into the mat to shift your hips a little bit to the left so that you can let your knees drop over to the right. Doing your best to keep both shoulders close to the mat and looking up towards the ceiling, or maybe you open up your arms and look over your left arm, opposite where your knees are. Allowing this final pose and this final side before Shavasana to give you anything that you're looking for. And for the final minute, if you have your legs crossed and you'd like to uncross them, so your knees are just stacked, make that adjustment. If you'd like to change where your hands are, make that adjustment. When you're ready, go ahead and brace your core. Inhale your knees back up to center. Pressing your feet into the mat so that your hips can come back to center. And taking any final movements, postures, poses, shapes that you would like. And find yourself into your version of Shavasana. If you'd like to stretch out completely long on your mat, and take an inhale and raise your arms up over your head. Stretch yourself out as long as you can. Inhaling, taking up as much space. And then exhale, let yourself settle down. fully extended on the mat in Shavasana. When you're ready, spend 3 to 5 minutes here, and then I'll offer that exercise again, if you would like, in thinking about what can we release so that we can carry on into the next season, into the next month, and the next phase of whatever is next for us. If you like to use that, if you like to use the moon as a way to guide that, using this full moon as an opportunity to let something go. So choose to spend this time either thinking about what you would like to release or just resting and letting yourself release into the mat. You don't need to worry about your breath or anything at all for the next 3 minutes. Go ahead and begin to notice your breath on your next inhale. And see if as you inhale, you can fill your belly and your chest all the way up. And as you exhale, let it out through your nose or your mouth, whichever feels natural. Begin to wiggle your toes. Maybe you begin to windshield wiper your ankles. Just slowly come back to your body, paying attention to it again from your feet up to your knees, up to your hips. How do they feel? Do you notice anything different than when we started? And then maybe you want to bend your knees and plant soles of your feet on the ground. And maybe you want to curl your knees into your chest. Use whatever movements feel intuitive to you to find your way over to one side and then up to a seat. And we'll meet there. Taking your time. And once you find yourself back up in a seat, with your eyes closed, if you were interested in thinking about what you wanted to release tonight, and you'd like to join after practice, I have pens and papers on the opposite side of the candles. If you'd like to participate in taking time to physically write down what you're interested in releasing, that's available to you. If you'd like to go ahead and move on from this practice, or whenever you are finished with that practice, take an inhale breath and bring your hands somewhere comfortable to you. And fill yourself up and let your exhale be your release. And move into whatever you would like to do with the rest of your evening. If you'd like to stay and spend time writing, being, and just sitting with the sensations, the emotions, and the thoughts that you have, I'll be here for about 20 or so more minutes. If you'd like to carry on into the world, I encourage you to consider taking anything that you cultivated tonight as a sense of calm with you. And always remember that you can come back to that 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 exercise anytime you're feeling a little bit disconnected. If you need a reminder as to what that was, it was 5 things you can see, 4 things you can feel, 3 things you can hear, 2 things you can smell, or noticing what it's like to breathe in through both nostrils, and 1 thing you can taste. And so with that, take one final breath together, inhaling, filling up, and exhale, letting it go. And moving into whatever makes sense for you to release, move into whatever is next for you. Thanks.